Before you spoke your name, before memory carved a sense of I, there was the body. Not just flesh and bone, but a complex mechanism that moved, breathed, and pulsed with silent precision. This body, ancient beyond measure, did not arise from your will. It is older than your thoughts, more intricate than your desires. It existed as a machine, perfected through cycles unseen, programmed in codes you have yet to understand. The heart beats its rhythm, unbidden by conscious thought. The lungs draw breath, independent of command. Cells divide, repair, and respond, all in orchestrated harmony without your permission. This is not your creation. The body precedes the self. It is the foundation, the silent engine on which identity rides. But it is not truly yours. Its origins lie hidden in the interplay of forces ancient and vast, in designs beyond human conception. The body is a sacred machine, a marvel of divine geometry and sacred mathematics. Yet, its blueprint is written not by you, but by something else. You are its witness, its passenger, its observer, not its master. And this realization that the vessel you inhabit is not entirely your own raises questions both terrifying and profound. Who then controls this machine? What purpose does it serve? And how does your consciousness fit within this sacred, alien design? The machine moves with perfect rhythm, a dance older than time. But the dancer, are you truly free, or merely a shadow moving within the sacred gears? To understand the body, you must first see it for what it is, not a simple vessel for your soul, but an ancient mechanism coded, sacred, and not entirely yours. This is the beginning of a journey into the mystery of flesh and spirit, of control and surrender, of the sacred machine and the self that rides within. If the body is a sacred machine, then who forged its intricate design? Who set in motion the rhythms that pulse through your veins? This question is ancient, echoing through myths, mysteries, and esoteric teachings. Many traditions speak of creators, gods, architects, cosmic engineers, beings who shaped not only flesh, but the invisible codes that govern it. Some call them watchers or Elohim. Others name them archons, keepers of sacred knowledge and gatekeepers of form. They built the machine to serve a purpose beyond immediate understanding. It is said this design is a program, a blueprint inscribed in light and vibration, an algorithm written in sacred geometry. But this design was not given freely. It is a covenant woven into your very cells, a pact between humanity and forces older than stars. The body is a vessel for energies both divine and alien, a machine that operates under rules not crafted by the conscious mind, but by those ancient architects. This sacred design is layered genetic code, energetic patterns, morphic fields, and unseen circuits linking you to cosmic rhythms. But these architects are not always benevolent. Some serve light, others shadow. Their influence extends beyond biology into consciousness, will, and identity. Your body is the stage on which these forces act, and sometimes struggle. Understanding who built this machine is not a matter of biology alone. It is a descent into the depths of cosmic politics and spiritual programming. Because to live within the sacred machine is to live within a design both miraculous and, at times, imprisoning. Who built it? And why? These questions invite you to look beyond skin and bone, into the sacred architecture of your being and the mysterious hands that shaped it. To grasp the profound nature of the body as a sacred machine, you must first confront a startling truth. This machine is not yours. Not in the way you might think. The body does not belong to the conscious mind that you call I. It obeys rules and rhythms encoded before your awareness, guided by forces beyond your direct control. You are born into a body whose systems function according to laws and patterns that precede your existence. The heart's beat, the breath's flow, the intricate dance of neurons all operate on programs imprinted long before you claimed ownership. These programs are sacred algorithms, complex and ancient. They govern not only physical processes, but energetic flows, emotional tides, and even the impulses of thought. And yet your conscious self, the you that thinks, decides, dreams, is often unaware of how much of this machine it truly commands. It is easy to believe that we are masters of our bodies, that consciousness directs every motion. But this is an illusion. The body is a puppet, dancing to a choreography written in codes you did not author. You may steer its course to some degree through choice, discipline, awareness, but the deeper currents of the machine flow according to an order that is neither arbitrary nor entirely personal. This is why so many feel trapped in patterns they cannot explain, haunted by impulses, fears, desires that seem to arise from somewhere else. This machine is governed by rules not designed by your ego, but by the collective, the cosmic, the ancestral. To violate these rules is to invite chaos, illness, imbalance, disconnection, symptoms of a sacred system out of sync. But here lies the paradox. Because the machine is not yours, because it obeys a higher design, true mastery comes not from domination, but from alignment. From learning to move with the machine, to listen to its rhythms, to respect the codes that govern it. This sacred machine holds a power, not the power you wield through will alone, but a deeper power rooted in harmony, in flow, in the mysterious intelligence that animates all life. And to forget this, to pretend the body is simply a possession, a tool for the ego, is to disconnect from the source of your true vitality. The body is not your property. It is a sacred trust, a machine built by unseen architects with laws that echo the cosmos itself. To know it, to honor it, to work within its sacred system is to begin the path toward true freedom. Because freedom is not the illusion of absolute control, but the deep peace of understanding the rules and dancing in their rhythm. This machine is not yours, and that is the beginning of its mystery and its power. Beneath the surface of flesh and bone lies a universe of codes, hidden algorithms woven into the very fabric of your being. These sacred algorithms govern every pulse, every breath, every thought, operating silently, unseen, yet orchestrating the symphony of life with exquisite precision. These are not mere biological processes. They are the language of creation itself, written in patterns of sacred geometry, mathematics, and vibration. Ancient wisdom speaks of these codes as the blueprints of the divine, intricate designs that link the microcosm of the body to the macrocosm of the cosmos. DNA is just the beginning, a fractal script that folds infinite complexity into tiny spirals. But beyond the genetic, there are energetic templates, morphic fields, and quantum fields pulsating with potential. The body is a living hologram, each cell a reflection of the whole, each organ a node in a vast network of sacred instructions. These algorithms are encoded with intent, carrying memory and consciousness far beyond the conscious mind's grasp. They regulate growth and healing, emotional balance and mental clarity, spiritual awakening and physical harmony. But they are not neutral. They are embedded with purpose, designed by unknown architects, interacting with forces both benevolent and obscure. Understanding these sacred algorithms is like deciphering a cosmic language where numbers and shapes hold keys to unlocking health, vitality, and transcendence. For example, the Fibonacci sequence appears repeatedly in the spirals of galaxies, the whirls of fingerprints, the unfolding of flower petals. This mathematical harmony is a signpost, an encoded whisper from the cosmos, inviting alignment with the sacred flow. Likewise, the chakra system, the subtle energetic centers within the body, represents another layer of these algorithms, portals of energy that correspond to aspects of consciousness, emotion, and spiritual development. Each chakra spins in precise frequency, governed by specific vibrations, colors, and sounds, forming an internal code that regulates the body's sacred machinery. These algorithms operate continuously, shaping your experience whether you are aware or not. The sacred machine is not a random assembly of parts, but a deliberate, intelligent design, a fusion of matter and spirit, geometry and energy, order and mystery. To live fully within this machine is to engage consciously with these algorithms. To tune your mind and body to the sacred codes is to begin the process of awakening. It is to shift from being a passive vessel to becoming a co-creator in the unfolding of your own sacred design. The algorithms are both map and compass, guiding you through the labyrinth of being, pointing toward health, wholeness, and transcendence. They are the silent music beneath your breath, the divine mathematics that frame your existence. And to understand them is to glimpse the mystery of the sacred machine that is not yours, but that you inhabit. In the grand theater of existence, the body moves as if it were a puppet strings pulled by unseen hands, actions choreographed by codes beyond the conscious mind. But who holds the strings? Who is the puppeteer? And where then does your true self reside? For many, the conscious self feels like the driver, the master of their fate, the commander of their body. Yet beneath this illusion lies a profound question. Is the consciousness that we identify as I merely the observer, a passenger within this sacred machine? Or is it truly the one directing the show? Ancient traditions and esoteric teachings suggest the latter is false. They reveal a subtle hierarchy within the self, multiple layers of consciousness, some ancient and instinctual, others conditioned and fleeting. The I that you know often acts as a limited interface, a storyteller weaving identity from the strands the body and its hidden architects provide. The deeper processes, the vital forces, the emotional currents, the instinctual drives are governed by the sacred algorithms of the body machine. Thus, the self you feel is both puppeteer and puppet, a paradox caught in the sacred dance. Sometimes you may catch a glimpse of this paradox in moments of stillness, when the sense of agency softens, when thoughts cease and pure awareness emerges. In these moments, the boundary between puppeteer and puppet blurs. Yet, in daily life, most move unaware, acting out roles written by ancient codes, performing dramas scripted before their birth. The body is a stage, the self a character, and the puppeteer hidden in the depths. Understanding this dynamic is essential for true freedom, because to awaken is not to seize control by force, but to become aware of the strings, to recognize the dance, and to learn when to lead and when to surrender. This is the art of sacred mastery, not domination of the body machine, but harmonious partnership. To dance with the puppeteer within, to honor the sacred rhythms, and to find freedom in the delicate balance between will and flow. For the body is sacred machinery, and the self, sometimes puppet, sometimes puppeteer, is the living flame that lights its way. To truly comprehend the body as a sacred machine, one must look beyond the physical surface, beyond flesh and bone, into the layers within that compose its complex architecture. The body is not a singular entity, but a multi-dimensional structure woven from multiple interrelated planes of existence. At the first level lies the physical body, the tangible form we see and touch, governed by biological laws, chemistry, and physiology. But beneath this lies the energy body, the subtle web of electromagnetic fields, chakras, meridians, and nadis, channels of life force, flowing invisibly, fueling and organizing the physical form. This energy body is the interface between the material and the spiritual, the dynamic field where consciousness begins to shape form. Beyond that is the mental body, the sphere of thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions which interact with both energy and physical layers, filtering reality and constructing identity. Then there is the emotional body, the reservoir of feelings and memories, a subtle archive of experience that colors our reality with moods, fears, and desires. Deeper still lie the archetypal layers, the primal patterns and mythic energies that pulse beneath personal identity, shaping destinies, behaviors, and soul journeys. These layers are not separate, but interwoven in a complex dance, each influencing the other, each resonating with the sacred algorithms that govern the whole. To perceive the body only as flesh is to see but a shadow of its true nature. Within these layers exists a sacred architecture, a machine far more profound than any mechanical device. Understanding this multi-level structure is the key to accessing the sacredness of the body. It invites us to honor not just the visible, but the invisible currents and patterns that sustain life and consciousness. It challenges us to move beyond the illusion of the isolated self, and to recognize our embeddedness in a vast interconnected web. In this recognition lies the potential for healing, transformation, and liberation. Because to navigate the sacred machine, we must learn to move skillfully through its many layers, listening deeply to the messages from flesh, energy, mind, and soul. Only then can we truly reclaim our place within this divine design and awaken to the fullness of what it means to be embodied. What if this sacred machine, the body you inhabit, is programmed? What if the patterns it follows are not only ancient, but coded by forces beyond your conscious control? Then the question arises, can the program be broken? Can you step outside the design and reclaim freedom within the machine? To break the program is not a simple act of will. It is a profound awakening, a dismantling of illusions woven deep into body, mind, and spirit. The program is embedded in genetics, in cellular memory, in the habitual flows of energy that reinforce the machine's control. It is reinforced by culture, belief, and conditioning, the collective scripts handed down through generations. Breaking free means first seeing the programming, recognizing the patterns that no longer serve the true essence within. This requires fierce honesty, a willingness to confront shadow and pain, to unlearn what was never truly yours, to release attachments to identity and control. Many paths have been offered: meditation, breathwork, ritual, sacred movement as gateways to shift the body's resonance, to reprogram the sacred machine at its core. At the heart of this breaking is conscious presence, the act of becoming the watcher of the machine rather than its prisoner. When awareness dawns, the puppet sees its strings, the dancer feels the choreography, the flame recognizes the vessel, and in this recognition, choice arises. You begin to move not as a reaction, but as a creator, not bound by the old program, but writing new codes in the language of love, truth, and freedom. This process is neither easy nor quick. It is a sacred initiation, a death and rebirth within the very body you inhabit. To break the program is to reclaim your sovereignty, not by destroying the machine, but by partnering with it. By understanding its sacred algorithms, honoring its layers, and transforming its limitations, the machine becomes no longer a cage, but a vehicle, a temple, a sacred vessel for the expression of your true self. This is the path of liberation within embodiment. To break the program is to remember who you truly are. To reclaim the sacred within the body, this sacred machine, not originally ours, is to embark on a journey of deep reconciliation. It begins with awareness, the recognition that beneath the layers of programming, beyond the foreign algorithms, there lies a core of sacred essence waiting to be embraced. This essence is not lost, but often buried beneath wounds, fears, and inherited conditioning. Reclaiming the sacred means peeling back these layers, like uncovering a hidden temple beneath centuries of dust. It involves cultivating presence, listening to the body, not as an enemy or mere object, but as a living, breathing temple, a place of divine encounter. Through practices such as meditation, movement, breathwork, and ritual, we learn to reconnect with the intelligence that animates the body's sacred machinery. We honor the rhythms of nature within us, the cycles of the moon, the tides of the breath, the ebb and flow of energy. We begin to see the body as a co-creation, not just a machine designed by external forces, but a sacred collaboration between the self, the cosmos, and the unseen architects. This reclamation is an act of courage and love to stand in the mystery of embodiment without denial or fear. It is to say, I accept this body not as a prison, but as a temple, a place where the divine and human meet. In reclaiming the sacred, we also reclaim agency, not the illusory control of ego, but the empowered freedom that arises from alignment with the deeper codes of life. This freedom is the true mastery of the sacred machine. It is a path back to wholeness where body, mind, and spirit dance in harmony. And in this harmony, the body ceases to be a foreign machine and becomes a living sanctuary, a vessel for the unfolding of true being. This is the sacred art of embodiment, to reclaim what was never lost, but only forgotten. And in doing so, to awaken fully to the mystery and power of the body itself. What if the body is more than a sacred machine, more than algorithms, programs, and external designs? What if it holds within itself the potential to transcend its own programming? This is the final mystery, the body beyond the machine. It is the possibility of awakening to a deeper dimension of embodiment, where the boundaries between self and other, mind and matter, begin to dissolve. Here, the body is no longer a puppet, nor merely a vessel. It becomes a portal, a gateway between worlds, a bridge between the finite and infinite. In this space beyond the machine, consciousness expands beyond the egoic self, touching the vast field of being. The body transforms not by changing its form, but by shifting its essence. Energy flows freely, unblocked by old patterns and limitations. The sacred algorithms still hum, but now in harmony with awakened awareness. This is the embodied awakening, a return to wholeness that integrates body, mind, and spirit. It is liberation not from the body, but within the body. The machine becomes alive, a living temple, a sacred instrument for presence, creativity, and transcendence. This is the ultimate gift, to live fully in a body that is both sacred machine and awakened being, to recognize that you are not separate from the sacred design, but an active participant in its unfolding. The body is a mystery complex, coded, and divine, not yours to command fully, but yours to embrace, not a prison to escape, but a home to awaken within. And in this awakening, you find the true freedom that no machine can contain. The body is sacred not because it belongs to you, but because it is part of the eternal dance between form and formlessness, between the known and the infinite. To live beyond the machine is to live in harmony with that dance, awake, free, and whole. We are told that we see with our eyes, that the world unfolds through vision, light, shape, shadow, form. But there is a deeper truth, and it begins with a paradox. The light you're looking for cannot be seen. Not with eyes, not with lenses, not even with the clearest of sight, because what you're searching for was never meant to be found in the visible world. The eye, wondrous as it is only a filter. It registers reflections, surfaces, vibrations, but it does not see essence. It does not see the flame behind the flame. It cannot pierce the veil. The ancient mystics knew this, and so did the ancients who built temples aligned not to the horizon, but to the unseen. To them, the true vision did not begin with the eye. It began when the eye was closed. Because sometimes, to see the real light, you must enter the darkness. Close your eyes, and a different world emerges. Not made of walls and shapes, but of pulses, flashes, soft fire flickering behind the silence of the mind. This is not imagination. It is remembrance. You are seeing not with your eyes, but with the part of you that has always seen, the inner eye, the seat of intuition, the one that perceives not what is projected, but what is present. And yet, in this world, we trust only what the eye confirms. We believe that truth must be lit, must be photographed, must be named. But the eye lies, not with malice, but with limitation. It cannot see beyond form. It cannot perceive the formless. It cannot witness the light that shines without source. The mystics called this the eye of the heart, or the eye of fire, or the eye that looks inward, not outward. It is not a metaphor. It is a sense forgotten, a vision dulled by centuries of noise. And yet it waits. It waits beneath your gaze, behind your thoughts, in the stillness you avoid, in the dark corners where your fear ends and your knowing begins. There is a reason why revelation often comes in darkness, why saints and seers retreat to caves, to shadows, to silence. Because the true light does not blind, it does not reflect, it emanates. Softly, unwavering, like something breathing beneath the surface of reality itself. And when your eyes grow weary of the world, when you finally let go of what is visible, that's when it begins. A glimmer, a warmth, a presence, not outside, but within. The light you are seeking has always been there, but your eyes were never meant to find it. Only your soul was. It flickers not on the horizon, nor in the stars, nor in the glow of distant suns. This light, the one spoken of in whispers, in sacred hymns, in the breath between heartbeat and thought, was never meant for the eyes. It does not shine, it calls. It is not emitted, it is known. The ancients gave it many names. not because they sought to define it, but because they knew it could never be captured in just one. In ancient Kemet, it was called the Sekhem light, an energy that flowed through the body like silent flame, rising through the spine like a serpent remembering the sky. In the temples of Luxor, the eye of Horus was more than a symbol. It was a mechanism for seeing without looking, for knowing without reaching. The left eye, the moon eye intuition, the right eye, the sun eye perception, but behind both, something else entirely. A third presence, not located in the skull but in the field, the place where awareness unfolds beyond the body. They called it the Ujjat, the whole eye, the unbroken lens of cosmic memory. In India, the sages called it Jyoti, not sunlight, not fire, but an inner glow, a flame that needs no fuel. It appears in meditation not as a light one sees, but as a light one becomes. And in the Chandogya Upanishad, there is a single line buried in silence. That which shines beyond the heavens, the very light within the heart that is the light. Do you feel it? Even now, something inside you stirs, a recognition without reference, a light that you've never seen, but somehow remember. In the West, mystics called it the uncreated light, the light that lit the world before the sun, before the word, before breath. To behold it is not to see it, but to merge with it. Saint Simeon called it a light that causes no pain to the eyes, because it is not outside, it radiates from within. And it is not soft, it is not faint, it is not made of photons. It is the original presence, the sacred architecture of being itself. Some have seen it in moments of death, others in the still point of meditation, in the silence before awakening, in the dream that feels more real than waking. When the veil thins, when thought ceases, when you stop looking for the light, it finds you. It rises behind the mind, illuminates nothing, and yet reveals everything. It does not cast shadows. It does not blind, because it is not in opposition to darkness. It is the ground from which all seeing arises. And when it touches you not with warmth, but with clarity, you are changed. Not with knowledge, but with presence. And this is why it cannot be seen with eyes. Because it was never meant to be a thing apart. It was meant to be the essence of all things. Not witnessed, but remembered. The light you're looking for was never out there. It has always been the part of you that knows without seeing. Not all that glows is holy. Not every light leads home. There are lights that distract, that deceive, that blind under the illusion of clarity. The world is full of them. Screens, flashes, staged halos, artificial dawns promising wisdom, while offering only more mirrors, more noise, more reflection, without source. This is the false light, the echo mistaken for the voice, the flicker mistaken for the flame. It shows up as certainty, as answers too neat, too fast, too bright. It dazzles the eyes but leaves the soul cold. And yet, we chase it, over and over. Like moths spiraling toward neon suns we were never meant to touch. The ancients knew this danger. The Gnostics spoke of it often. They warned of the demiurge, a being of shadow pretending to be light, the architect of illusion, of form, of separation. They said this false creator wove a world out of reflection and control and set a counterfeit light in the sky, one that keeps eyes open but hearts asleep. In Gnostic myth, true light comes not from above, but from within. It is the spark, buried beneath layers of false seeing. The demiurge offers sight, but not vision. He offers order, but not truth. And many mistake his brilliance for divinity. But truth does not blind. It does not shout. It whispers. It waits. In the dark places, in the quiet hearts, in the souls who are willing to close their eyes to everything they've been told is light. Because to find the real light, you must pass through its imitations. You must know the difference between radiance and projection, between illumination and manipulation. Even in modern life, the pattern repeats. We are drawn to glowing promises, followers, fame, enlightenment, sold in steps, but real light has no marketing, no cost, no center. It arrives when you are emptied, when you stop chasing, when the eye turns inward and finally says, "Show me what I've missed." And what you find is not a new brightness. It is a warmth, a deep, quiet certainty, a flame that doesn't flicker. And when you try to describe it, you realize it cannot be shown, only known. This is why the mystics withdrew, not from the world but from its false dawns. They understood that not all light is truth, that sometimes the brightest thing in the room is the one that leads you away from yourself. So they walked into the dark. They closed their eyes. They listened. They waited. And in that silence, a different kind of light appeared. One that asked nothing, proved nothing, but changed everything. The world offers you its light. It offers you distraction dressed as revelation. But the light you're seeking has no spotlight, no glow, because it doesn't need to be seen. It simply is. And when you're ready, you'll feel it. Not in your eyes, but in the space behind them, in the place where you finally stop looking and begin to remember. To see, truly, sometimes you must first be made blind. This is the paradox hidden in every sacred tradition. The veil is not lifted by more light, but by the surrender to its absence. Darkness is not the enemy, it is the womb, the first place, the waiting space, the sacred hollow where all sight is born. In ancient mystery schools, darkness was not feared, it was revered. The initiate was taken underground into caves, catacombs, temples deep beneath stone, not as punishment, but as preparation. There, in the total absence of light, something curious began to happen. First, the mind resists. It scrambles to orient, to grasp, to label. Then, it tires. And beneath the exhaustion, beneath the silence, a new kind of seeing begins to stir. Not in the eyes, but in the body, in the soul. Flashes behind closed lids, patterns that were never learned, a glow from within. You are not hallucinating, you are remembering. Because there is a part of you that was never blind. It is the vision of dreamers, of shamans, of prophets whose sight comes not from the sky, but from stillness. This is why the Sibyls of Delphi sat in shadow, why the vision quests of indigenous elders began in solitary caves or forests under moonless skies, why early Christian mystics entered cells for years not to hide but to see. And what did they find? Not images, not answers. They found presence. In the dark, distractions dissolve, forms lose meaning. There is no horizon to chase, no detail to cling to. Only you, only breath, only the awareness that has never needed eyes. In this stillness, a new kind of light appears, not luminous but alive, not sharp but certain, and it speaks. without voice, without shape. It says, "You are not what you see, you are the one who sees." And slowly you understand that every flicker of worldly light was only ever a mirror. That true sight was waiting in the one place you never thought to look. The dark. You begin to realize this darkness is not empty. It is full. It is rich. It is sacred. It holds your ancestors, your memories, your essence. And it welcomes you back not with flash, but with silence, with space, with truth. When you allow yourself to stop reaching for light, when you sit in the cave without fear, when you trust the unseen, you begin to perceive something deeper than light. You perceive being. And being is its own illumination. This is why the mystics say the lamp is not outside. It burns in the heart, in the quiet center where light and dark are no longer opposites, but lovers. You do not need to flee the dark to find the light, because the light you seek, the one that cannot be seen, is waiting there, inside it, inside you. What organ sees but has no eyes? What place glows but has no flame? The sages would answer, the heart. Not the heart of flesh, not the muscle that beats, but the inner heart, the radiant chamber, the throne of knowing, the lamp behind all lamps. Because the light you are seeking was never external. It was seated inside you before your first breath. In the Hermetic tradition, they called it the solar heart, a living sun within, not metaphorical, but energetic. In Sufi mysticism, the qalb is the center of illumination, not the intellect, not the senses, but the polished mirror that reflects the divine when cleared of dust. And the dust? It is distraction, desire, false light, noise. But when it's wiped clean, something begins to shine from within that does not need eyes to see, that does not need permission to glow. Eastern traditions say the same. In the Upanishads, the heart is the city of Brahman, a small lotus glowing deep inside, beyond thought, beyond form. There is a light that shines beyond all things on earth, beyond the highest, the very highest heavens. This is the light that shines in your heart. This is not poetry, it is instruction. The way is inward, always inward. We have been taught to seek illumination as if it were a star to reach, a temple to climb toward, a secret to unlock. But the temple is already here. You carry it. And in its sanctum burns a light that does not flicker. The Gnostics knew it. So did the Essenes, the Desert Fathers, the women who wandered into forests alone, not to escape the world, but to remember it. They understood you do not become light. You remember that you already are it. And the heart, that silent compass, was the only true lamp. When your heart opens, you begin to perceive things differently, not with vision, but with resonance. You see the truth of a word before it's spoken. You feel a presence before it enters. You know without knowing how you know, because the heart does not deduce. It recognizes. It does not need light to see. It is the light. And in this is the great reversal. All your life you were told to look outward, to seek, to strive, to ascend. But the masters and mystics say, descend, descend into the quiet flame beneath your ribs, into the place that waits without wanting, the place that remembers what the eyes forgot. When you reach it, you will not need to see anything, because suddenly everything is clear, not with the clarity of detail, but with the clarity of presence, of knowing, of being in the center of the thing itself. The heart is not symbolic, it is functional, it is the doorway. And when its light is lit, the entire world begins to glow, not from the outside in, but from the inside out. If the eyes cannot see it, can it still speak? If the light is silent, can it still call your name? Yes, because there is a language that does not pass through lips, that cannot be heard by ears, yet it communicates directly to your very essence. It is the language of inner light. You have felt it before, in the hush of a sacred moment, in the tremble of awe, in the still pause between breath and thought, when something greater brushes against you and says nothing, yet says everything. It is not built of words. It is made of vibration, of alignment, of pure being. When mystics speak of visions, they rarely describe images. They speak instead of light that teaches, a brightness that carries meaning, not in form, but in feeling. In ancient texts, this is called divine knowing, gnosis, revelation. The Hebrews called it Shekinah, the indwelling presence of divine light, not visible to the eye, but felt as an unmistakable warmth that unfolds within. In Eastern traditions, light is often a metaphor for wisdom, but deeper than that, it is a medium through which consciousness speaks to itself. When you meditate and suddenly feel light within you, not as image, but as awareness, you are hearing the language without sound. In dreams, it sometimes appears as color, not symbolic, but sentient. The blue that carries stillness, the gold that hums with remembrance, the violet that does not speak, but opens you. This is how the soul communicates, not in concepts, but in clarity. The light says, you know this, not in your mind, in your marrow. Many ancient teachers knew this language well. They spoke it through silence. They transmitted it through gaze, through gesture, through mere presence. You could sit beside them for hours without a single word exchanged and leave knowing who you are. This is the power of light as language. It speaks not to the surface, but to the structure, to the part of you before language. When the desert fathers wandered in silence, they weren't escaping noise. They were entering the deeper conversation, one that has no alphabet, one that speaks in truth itself. Even in death, those who return from near-death experiences often say the same thing. The light, it spoke to me, not in words, but I understood. This is not fiction. It is not fantasy. It is the native tongue of the soul. And when you stop seeking understanding through logic, through sound, through image, you begin to hear it. In the quiet spaces between thoughts, in the tremble beneath beauty, in the resonance that has no name but feels more you than anything you've ever heard spoken aloud. You don't need to learn this language. You need to remember it, because it has always been there, waiting, speaking, gently saying, I am not outside. I am what you are. There is a light so pure, so ancient, that it cannot be shaped. It does not fall on surfaces. It does not reflect or refract. It does not cast shadows. Because it is not of the world, it is behind it. This light has no form, no boundary, no opposite. It is not warm, but it burns. It is not bright, yet it reveals everything. It is what the mystics called the light of lights. In the East, it was described not as brilliance, but as emptiness, a void that is not hollow, but alive. In Buddhism, this light is shunyata, the great emptiness, not darkness, not light, but the space in which all light can appear. It is the canvas, the silence before the first sound, and it is more real than anything your eyes will ever see. Because all forms are temporary, even the stars. But this light is eternal. It was here before the first dawn. It will remain after the last shadow. You cannot approach it, you cannot grasp it, you cannot even imagine it, because you are made of it. It is the awareness that looks out from your eyes, not the object they behold. And this is why you cannot see it, because it is what is seeing. The moment you try to turn toward it, it slips through your fingers not because it hides, but because it is the one doing the turning. In the Upanishads, it is said, "There the sun shines not, nor the moon and stars, nor the lightning, and where this shines, all else borrows its light." This is the non-light, the light that is not an object, but a state, a presence. In deep states of meditation, some glimpse it, not as a vision, but as a disappearance of self, of world, of need. And in that absence, a fullness, a clarity so total, so vast, that it cannot be spoken. The Kabbalists called it Ein Sof Ar, the endless light. Not light in the world, but light as the world. It does not shine on reality. It is reality before it becomes visible. And here lies the final secret. The light you've been searching for, the one that seemed lost, hidden, unreachable, has never left. Because it was never in front of you. It was within you, behind you, beneath the looking itself. It is the light that needs no eyes. It is the light that remains when all vision ends. When you no longer seek, no longer chase, no longer grasp, it remains. Still, silent, complete. And in that stillness, you will finally understand. You are not meant to see the light. You were meant to become it. There comes a moment in every true seeking when the search dissolves. Not because the answer was found, but because the one asking is no longer separate from what was being sought. The seer becomes the seen. The flame merges with the breath, and the light is no longer something to find, but something to be. This is not enlightenment as achievement, not a prize, not a peak, but a quiet and profound return to yourself, to the part of you that never needed proof, never needed vision, only remembrance. The mystics did not gain sight, they dissolved into seeing. They did not become special, they became simple, empty, clear, like a window so clean it disappears. And what passed through them was not light from the outside, but the original radiance that was always inside. There is a moment in deep inner stillness when you realize you are not the observer. You are not even the observed. You are the space in which both arise. You are the light behind the eyes, the silence beneath the name, the field through which all forms flicker, then fade. And what remains is you. Not the you made of stories or timelines or reflections, but the you that simply is. The Sufi mystic Bayezid once said, "I went from God to God until I recognized that God was myself. Not the self of ego, but the self of light. No form, no face, no fear, just presence. Still, shining, always." In this state, there is no longer a search for light, because the light is no longer a destination. It is your very nature. You stop trying to illuminate the path because you realize you are the path. You stop chasing vision because you are the source from which all vision arises. This is what the sacred texts meant when they said, "You are the temple, you are the flame, you are that. Tat twamasi." This is what Christ meant when he said, "The kingdom is within you." Not metaphor, not comfort, instruction. You were never meant to worship the light. You were meant to recognize it. In your breath, in your stillness, in the knowing that comes without thought. So the question is no longer, where is the light? The question is, can I be still enough to remember that I am already made of it? No more seeking, no more striving. Just the seer becoming the seeing. Just the light realizing itself. There is a flame, so quiet it can only be felt when all else has gone still. It does not flicker, it does not fade, it does not burn away, because it is not made of fire, it is made of being. You've carried it with you your entire life through joy, through sorrow, through forgetting, and still it glows. In the deepest sleep, in the silent pauses between thought, in the ache of awe you cannot name. It's there, always there. This is the hidden flame, the light that cannot be seen, because it is what allows all else to be seen. It is not bound to form. It does not need belief. It does not ask for worship. It simply is. When the mystics withdrew to caves, when the prophets wandered into the wilderness, they weren't searching for something new. They were remembering something ancient, something so fundamental that it needs no teacher, no temple, no word. Only silence, only stillness. Because the light you're looking for does not arrive with thunder. It does not strike like lightning. It emerges gently, patiently from beneath the noise. And when it does, there are no visions, no revelations, only recognition. A quiet knowing that says, "I've always been here." You may weep, not because something was found, but because it was never truly lost. It was there when you were born, when you forgot, when you searched, when you gave up, and when you came home to yourself. It was there even in the moments you felt most alone, especially then. Because that's when the eyes grow tired, that's when the mind releases its grip, that's when the false lights fade. And only then can the hidden flame be felt. It does not dazzle, it does not shout, it simply remains. Unmoving, unshaken, true. This is the light that the eyes will never see, because it was never made for them. It lives in the quiet center, the innermost altar, the point between breath and being. And when you find it, or rather, when it finds you, there is nothing to do, only this. Sit beside it, let it warm you, let it remind you, let it dissolve you. Because you are not separate from it. You never were. You are the flame. You are the lamp. You are the light. And the light you were seeking has been you all along. They told us it was freedom, an infinite circle of birth, death, and rebirth, a gift handed down by saints and sages. Yet for many, this wheel became a prison. Imagine a vast stone wheel turning at the center of the cosmos, its rim lined with countless lives. Each spoke connects a soul to its past and future, day after eternal day. And at the hub sits karma, stern as a jailer, vigilant as a judge. Listen to the whisper of the wheels turning, a slow, grinding chant that echoes through every heartbeat, every breath you ever drew. At its first revolution, you burst into the world as a newborn, bright eyes, open hands, the first gasp of life, full of promise. Yet even as you learned to walk, the wheel began to turn again, drawing you ever closer to your next form. Perhaps you became a scholar in a land of scholars, consumed by books and parchments, or a warrior beneath storm-dark skies, sword singing in your hand, or yet an animal spirit, running through forests of memory. Each life a lesson, each lesson a debt. The more you learned, the more weight you accrued. For every kindness, a favor owed. For every cruelty, a scar to carry. And so the wheel spun on. They say the Sanskrit word sasara means wandering, but wandering can be liberation. Here, it became endless pursuit, no resting place, no final home. Reflect on your own burdens, the guilt that follows you into sleep, the desire that haunts your dreams. In each waking moment, the wheel reminds you, you are not free. Across the desert of time, priests and poets spoke of escaping this cycle, moksha, nirvana, release. Yet each path demanded rigor as brutal as any monastery's vow, asceticism until flesh withers, meditation until mind fractures, rituals until the very self dissolves. And even when those rare few claimed liberation, they vanished into some formless light, leaving whispers behind like broken vows. Their stories became legends, both inspiration and warning. For what is a gift that you cannot refuse? What is freedom when it shackles you to a destiny spun by unseen fingers? Hear the clank of chains forged by belief, chains that bind even the highest soul to the wheel's cruel circumference. In the darkness between revolutions, some dared to question, must we spin forever? A voice slipped through temple walls, echoing among statues of gods. Is there a way off the wheel? Yet every answer returned to the same place. More practice, more lifetimes, more debt to repay. The trap turned ever tighter until the wheel was no longer a path of growth, but a cage whose bars bore the names of all your past selves. And so the cycle continued, life, death, life, or so it seemed. Breathe in the hush that follows the endless chant. For the trap of reincarnation is this: to believe in the circle as an eternal truth, when perhaps the true freedom lies in stepping off altogether. Ahead lies the origin of the myth, how the wheel began its merciless turn, and why the first promise of rebirth concealed the cruelest bondage of all. The journey has only begun. They called it a whisper at first, a murmur drifting through temple courts, carried on desert winds. The notion that life might not end in one body, but begin anew in another. In lands cradled by the great rivers, the earliest priests carved tales of cyclical rebirth into stone. In the Indus, they spoke of a flame, Agni's fire kindled at every death, only to leap forth again, igniting a new life. In the sands of Egypt, magicians inscribed on tomb walls the promise of Ka and Ba reuniting at dawn, so that the soul could rise once more. Listen to the echo of chisels on basalt, each strike resonating with hope and something else. Across the Aegean, philosophers learned of transmigration from Pythagoras, whose voice rang in white marble halls. Souls move like rivers, flowing from life to life. Learning with each turn, his disciples inked the teaching on papyrus scrolls, binding doctrine with devotion. Yet these seeds of belief grew entwined with power. Kings claimed that their throne was sanctified by countless reigns-past selves guiding present decisions. Priests taught that every soul carried debts from prior existences, debts to the gods, debts to the community, debts to itself. And the more one believed, the tighter the snare of obligation. Feel the weight of those debts. invisible chains slipping round the ankles of every living being. In distant temples beneath Ashoka's rule, stone carvings depicted souls climbing Yaksha's ladders toward higher realms, while in the Grand Library of Alexandria, scholars argued whether the wheel turned ever upward or circled back in endless loops. Every culture added its own layer heavenly realms for the virtuous, shadowy abysses for the wicked, but the core remained: life, death, rebirth. Over centuries, this mosaic of beliefs crystallized into a system: Sanskrit sutras, Vedas, Upanishads texts that codified the journey of the soul. They taught of 13 heavens, 3 hells, and countless domains in between, each visited on the soul's passage. The aspirant learned to calculate the fail-fruit of action so as to plant seeds of a better return. Yet with each addition came complexity, and with complexity, confusion. Prophets arose, decrying the wheel's cruelty. One insisted that the cycle was divine mercy, endless chances to learn and grow. Another denounced it as a cosmic prank, an illusion trapping consciousness in an endless masquerade. Hear the clash of voices across the eons. Reincarnation is liberation, cried one. No, it is enslavement, thundered another. In the silent sanctuaries of Shaivite ascetics, hermits shaved their heads and sat in mountain caves for decades, shopping for moksha through austerity. In the lotus courts of Buddhist monasteries, monks gazed upon skulls and meditated on impermanence, believing that insight could shatter the wheel's rim. Yet most adherents, farmers, weavers, artisans, simply accepted the system, neither questioning nor rebelling, but living within its familiar orbit. Picture the life of a simple villager, born beneath rice paddies, married at 12, dying under swaying palms, only to return as a laborer's child, or a paddy bird, or a stone on the river's bed. It was in these everyday rebirths that the trap took root so subtle that few perceived it. A mother mourning at her child's grave might comfort herself: she will return. A man enduring poverty could console: next life I shall be rich. Yet hope became shackles, desire became debt, and every aspiration bound the soul more tightly to the wheel. Feel the irony in those consolations. They promised release, yet wove the cords of expectation ever tighter. And so, from the delta of the Nile to the banks of the Ganges to the ruins of Rome, the myth spread its roots deep in human yearning. It offered purpose for the suffering, promise for the fallen, and an answer for the unknown. But like all powerful myths, it concealed the cost: the endless return, the perpetual striving, the fear that one could never be done. Let the ancient stones of temple and tomb speak in their silence, for they carry the memory of countless souls, each reborn, each trapped, each turning on the endless wheel. Ahead lies the true mechanism of bondage, karma's hidden chain sand, the moment when the chains first clamped shut. The myth's origins are only the prelude to the trap itself. They spoke of karma as cosmic justice, a gentle hand guiding each soul back to balance. Yet beneath its surface lay a snare more subtle than iron shackles. Imagine your every thought, every word, every deed etched upon threads of light. With each kindness, a golden filament is woven. With each slight, a dark strand is spun. These filaments twist and braid around your soul like vines in a garden, beautiful in promise, yet binding in their grip. Feel the tug of those threads, each one a reminder that no action goes unseen. At birth, you inherited not only your parents' blood, but the weight of their debts. Their anger becomes your burden, their compassion your blessing. Generations stack one upon another, a tower of obligations rising into the sky. And still the wheel turns, demanding payment in lives yet to come. In Sanskrit, karma means action, but action implies consequence, and consequence implies liability. The wheel's counselor, the god Yama, watches from his court, tallying each score, credit and debit recorded in celestial ledgers that never close. Hear the silent ticking of those cosmic registers, always watching, always counting. Consider a farmer who steals a handful of grain to feed his hungry child. His act, born of love, becomes a debt. He will return, perhaps as his own great-grandchild, born into famine, forced once again to choose between survival and sin. Consider a teacher who lies to spare a student's feelings. Her gentle falsehood blooms into confusion, rippling through future lives as self-doubt and fractured trust. Reflect on your own smallest acts. Each one, a stone dropped into karma's well, its ripples spreading unseen. And what of those who suffer without cause? A child struck by illness, a family torn by disaster. Were they born into tragedy by virtue of sins long buried in the mists of memory? Or is the very notion of deserved suffering the cruelest blade of all? Philosophers argued, karma is not punishment, but learning. Yet what of lessons no soul consents to learn? What of cycles of pain repeated, like malignant echoes through lifetimes? Sense the weight of unwanted lessons, the despair of being forced to endure and to repeat. The threads tighten with every cycle. Forgiveness, they taught, could erase negative filaments, but who truly forgives the unseen sins of past lives? Confession and penance become rituals to lighten burdens, yet often they add new obligations, promises to perform good works in future existences. See the labyrinth of rituals. Each exit leads to another corridor in the maze. In monastic cells, seekers beat their bodies in penance, hoping to atone for offenses they cannot even recall. Yet their self-flagellation only breeds new strands of guilt, each lash a testimony to karma's unyielding claim. In worldly courts, judges imposed fines and sentences, echoes of karma's own decrees rehearsed in human language. But legal verdicts can end. Cosmic verdicts endure beyond death's door. Feel the irony in human justice mirroring divine coercion, both bound by the same unbreakable law. And so, the hidden chains wrap tighter. You act to relieve old debts, only to incur new ones. You strive to be better, only to be weighed by standards you did not choose. Your every effort becomes a link in the chain. Your every aspiration another spoke in the wheel. Breathe in the hush that follows this revelation, for karma's promise of balance conceals its true nature as bondage. Ahead lies the grim truth of endless striving, the illusion of spiritual progress, where each step forward is measured by distance yet to go. The trap closes still further, and only by naming the mechanism can you hope to break free. They whispered of ascent, a path of countless lives climbing ever upward, a ladder to the stars, rung by shining rungs of awakening. In the dawn of memory, the first seeker gazed skyward, dreaming of light beyond light, of a summit where the soul might rest. And so the promise was born. With each life you evolve. With each death you grow closer to the perfect truth. Breathe in the sweetness of that promise, a nectar drawn from hope. Yet in the quiet hours, a fragile doubt stirred. What if the summit drifts further still, as you climb, ever climbing, yet never arriving? Imagine a staircase carved from mist, its top lost in swirling clouds. Each step feels solid beneath your foot, yet as you ascend, the next step appears, and the next, a spiral that coils around infinity. They called it progress, a grand design of evolution written in the stars, but every ascent cast a longer shadow behind. Every rung you grasped became a rung you feared to lose. Feel the vertigo beneath your feet, the dizziness of endless rising. In the libraries of old, scribes counted the stages of awakening: 3 lives to master compassion, 7 lives to conquer desire, 12 lives to transcend form. The numbers danced like incantations on vellum, a litany of ever-receding goals. And the seekers believed, each incarnation is a step closer, each soul more refined than the last. But refinement bore a price. For the more subtle your form, the less anchored you became. A spirit light as gossamer, adrift in the winds of karma. Listen to the echo of that fragility, a whisper lost on the breeze. In meditation caves, priests sat for decades, chiseling layers of ego away, but ego, it seemed, would not yield. As they peeled back one facet, another hardened in its place. In desert hermitages, mystics burned their scrolls of desire, hoping to free their hearts. Yet as the flames consumed each longing, new yearnings rose from the ashes. See the cycle of destruction and rebirth, like a phoenix that cannot die. And in the highest temples, where initiates drank the waters of illumination, they found the waters ever deeper, a well with no bottom. They whispered of the one life, a final incarnation beyond all others. But when it came, it was only another shade of becoming, another mirror in the hall of endless selves. Feel the weight of that mirror, reflecting a face that grows more distant with each glance. The trap lay hidden in the promise itself, to evolve without end, to perfect a self that never halts, to chase a horizon that retreats as you near it. And so the soul, once bright with curiosity, grows weary, a traveler lost on a path of infinite length. Each triumph dims as it passes, each victory consumed by the hunger for the next. Hear the lament of the weary soul, a song without conclusion. What if progress was never meant to be a ladder, but a circle? A spiral that returns upon itself until the traveler sees that the summit lies not above, but within. In that moment, when the seeker turns inward, the illusion shatters like glass, the mist clears, the ladder dissolves. And in the radiant stillness, the true journey begins. They spoke of liberation, yet found themselves within walls unseen, a prison built of mind and memory. Imagine a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in shadow, its walls inscribed with the echoes of every thought you've ever held, every fear you've ever whispered in the dark. Breathe in the hush of that corridor, the hush that lingers after your own footsteps fade. From the moment you first believed in your past lives, chains began to coil around your psyche. Threads of guilt spun from deeds you cannot recall. Shackles forged from promises you cannot keep. A simple misstep, a harsh word long since forgotten, yet in that hidden archive, it shines with cruel clarity, an accusation uttered by your own soul. Feel the ghost of that word curling at the edge of your mind. They called it the fear of futures, a dread that in the next life, your suffering would be multiplied. A child born without sight, a mother bereft of laughter, a spirit doomed to wander in silence. This fear crept into dreams, a shadow perched at the foot of your bed, whispering of nameless torments to come. Let the darkness press close, yet breathe, for you remain in the world of the living. In quiet moments, the walls would shift memories of distant epics cascading through the mind. You, a peasant in a flooded delta. You, a priest in a crumbling temple. You, a soldier bleeding beneath foreign skies. Each memory left a scar, a wound reopened with every recollection. Feel the ache of those old wounds, still pulsing beneath the surface. Counselors taught that to heal, one must embrace every past self, to gather their stories like sacred relics and lay them at your feet. Yet as each life was named, the prison grew larger. Corridors multiplying into a labyrinth of identities. Practices arose, meditations to detach from the past, breathwork to sever karmic ties, mantras to dissolve the I that held these echoes tight. But attachments once formed are not so easily broken. Each attempt to release them only tightened the bonds, as if the prison walls responded to every push by drawing closer still. Hear the echo of a door opening, only to reveal another corridor, darker than the last. And so the traveler wandered, seeking escape, yet stumbling deeper into the maze. Mind mapped after mind, life layered upon life, until the self became a tower of fractured mirrors, each reflection distorting the next. Fear of oblivion warred with fear of return, and in that stalemate, the soul remained captive. No gate opened wide enough, no key fit the lock forged in the fires of eternal belief. Feel the press of unseen bars, the chill of a cell that exists in thought alone. Some turned inward still further into ecstatic trance, into visions of cosmic unity, yet found that even on the highest mountaintop of consciousness, the walls of the prison loomed, casting long shadows. Others sought release in denial, rejecting memories, denying past selves, erasing names from the scroll of eternity. But denial is its own chain, a refusal that binds the mind as surely as acceptance. Consider the paradox to free yourself by denying the very bonds you seek to break. In the end, the psychological prison is woven not by gods nor demons, but by the fabric of belief itself. Each thought a brick, each memory a mortar, building cell by cell, lifetime by lifetime. Yet within this prison lies the secret of its undoing. For belief shapes walls, but belief can also dissolve them. Listen for the crack in the masonry, the single thought that questions every premise. And in that question, a door may open, but only if you dare to walk beyond the walls you have built. They spoke of the wheel, yet each culture placed the traveler in its own design, a mosaic of beliefs, each tile both guide and snare. In the shadowed sanctuaries of India, monks sat beneath banyan trees, whispering of moksha release from Sasara. They chanted verses from the Upanishads. In knowing the self, you transcend the cycle. Yet outside the walls, villagers painted their doors with lotus emblems, praying that their next birth would be kinder. Feel the murmurs of temple bells, echoing across rice paddies, drawing souls back into form. The Jain ascetic stretched until flesh thinned to a whisper, believing that by denying every comfort, he could shatter all bonds of karma. His skeleton shape became legend proof that flesh is illusion. Yet in his bones lay a paradox. The more he denied the world, the more tightly the wheel seemed to turn around him. Hear the scrape of sandals on stone, a vow unbroken yet freedom unreached. Across the mountains of Tibet, lamas studied the Bardo Thodol, the Book of the Dead, guiding souls through liminal realms for 49 days. They taught that by reciting its verses aloud, one could choose rebirth or escape it. But in cold monasteries, novices whispered fear. What if you wander too long in the mist and lose your way? Feel the chill of high passes, the wind's lament, carrying names of those who never returned. In ancient Greece, Pythagoreans held fast to metempsychosis, the soul's journey through beasts and men. They vowed vegetarian purity, fearing that each animal might hold a brother's spirit. Yet among them, some grew haunted by visions, flickers of past lives as wolves or swans, unwelcome memories that tore at waking peace. Sense the rustle of olive leaves, the ghost of wings brushing your shoulder. In Egypt, the Ka and Ba danced in tomb paintings, the Ka remaining near the coffin, feeding on offerings, the Ba flying free each night to converse with gods. Priests guarded spells in the Book of the Dead, hoping to guide the soul through demons and gates. Yet even in richly furnished tombs, many never awoke anew, their Ba lost in endless corridors of shadow. Smell the resin of frankincense, a promise of nourishment, yet no guarantee of passage. In Mesoamerica, the Maya painted death as a journey through 9 underworlds, each ruled by gods of fearsome aspect. They offered sacrifice shuni, jade, Mayasto propitiate the path, but when drought and war ravaged the land, those rites became hollow gestures, and the wheel turned unheeded in the dust. Feel the heat of sun-baked temples, a hunger for rain unfulfilled across generations. Across these cultures, a pattern emerges. Belief in rebirth offers hope, yet demands ever more devotion. Rituals to escape become rites that bend incense coils, mantras loop, and the soul, like a moth in flame, circles without release. Hear the refrain of every prayer, a melody that both uplifts and entraps. They called their doctrines liberation, moksha, nirvana, apokatastasis, but in each a hidden blade, conditions to meet, disciplines to maintain, purity to uphold. The traveler who faltered found himself cast back, a seed sown on barren soil, destined to sprout in hardship. Sense the weight of ancestral eyes, judging each misstep across lifetimes. And so, through the tapestry of human history, the trap took shape woven from faith, fear, and the longing for meaning. Each culture's promise of escape mirrored its own values and terrors, yet none truly shattered the cycle. Breathe in the dust of temples and caves. Know that cultural robes can adorn the wheel, but cannot free the soul wrapped within. Ahead lies the promise of true escape names of liberation that glimmer in the dark. But first, we must confront the cost of every vow made in fear of return. They spoke of liberation, a promise whispered on pilgrims' lips, a distant beacon beyond the wheel's unending turn. In the hush of dawn, seekers gathered around sacred fires, hoping the flames would carry their vows skyward. Let me taste moksha, grant me nirvana, release me from this forge of flesh. Breathe in the smoke of incense's sandalwood, myrrh, juniper, each tendril a prayer, each ember a plea. They offered the gods their finest silks and precious gems, hoping wealth could purchase freedom's key. They recited sutras until tongues ached, believing every syllable etched a path beyond rebirth. In the caverns of the Himalayas, they locked themselves in silence. Vows of speechlessness sealed lips like iron clasps. Breathing became a chantinhale, exhale a mantra to hush the mind's endless chatter. Feel the stillness behind the eyelids, a silence that sings in the heart. In students' hands, scrolls of the Gita glowed by candlelight. Detach from desire, the verses proclaimed. Be a lotus rooted in mud, yet untouched by its mire. Yet each word they grasped seemed to slip like water through fingers. They called it moksha, release from the wheel, a single lifeline cast into the river of Sasara. Yet when they reached for it, it swayed beyond their grasp, reflected in ripples of doubt and longing. Hear the echo of water against stone, the soft lament of currents that cannot rest. In the chambers of Tibetan lamas, they chanted the name of Amitabha Buddha, hoping his vow to welcome all at death's door would ferry them to Sukhavati, a land of bliss where no wheel turns, no suffering stirs. They painted mandalas of sandintricate worlds built to be swept away, a fleeting metaphor for impermanence, yet each grain of sand labored under prayers for permanence beyond death. See the mandala's colors swirl, a universe built and unbuilt in a single breath. In Christian monasteries, they spoke of apokatastasis, the cosmic return of all souls to the Father's heart. I will ransom every spark of life, they cried, until even Satan himself rejoices in redemption. They fasted, they knelt, they wrote confessions in blood-red ink, trusting in a love so vast it must eventually embrace every wanderer. Feel the weight of those confessions, ink scribed with hope and anguish. Yet for every vow the cycle persisted. A soul achieved fleeting blazes of rapture, only to drift back into flesh. A monk glimpsed the light, then returned to chant again. A devotee tasted the nectar of divine union, but it evaporated at dawn's first light. They called these returns testrials to deepen faith. Yet for many, the promise of escape became another snare, another layer of longing piled upon the stack of lifetimes. Hear the hollow ring of promise unmet, a bell whose toll fades before its echo dies. And in the quiet aftermath, some dared to ask, is release truly a gift, or another chain forged by hope? Their question shivered through temple halls, rattling doors of doctrine once thought immovable. Breathe in the tremor of doubt, for doubt is the midwife of truth. Beyond the promises lies the final paradox: to seek escape within a system whose very rules demand endless seeking, to grasp liberation as though it were an object, when perhaps liberation is the very act of letting go. And in that letting go, a new path emerges, silent, invisible, unchained. They speak of reincarnation now, in neon glow, in internet forums and glossy paperbacks, a matte promise wrapped in digital dreams. In sleek studios, spiritual coaches guide clients through past life regressions, hypnotic spirals playing on widescreen TVs. Voices soft as velvet. You were a healer in Atlantis, a warrior in ancient Rome, a mystic in Lemuria. Breathe in the glow of the screen. Its flicker promising worlds you've never known. They sell courses in quick karma clearance, 12 weekly modules to dissolve lifetimes of error. Unlock your soul's hidden potential in just 3 easy steps. In shopping malls, crystal shops line corridors, tumbled stones etched with Sanskrit mantras, pendulums twirling above velvet cloths, bright cards shuffled and spread, your past life identity revealed. Feel the weight of the pendulum's swing, rhythmic, hypnotic, insistent. Well-known gurus tout celebrity endorsements. Oprah discovered she was an Egyptian priestess. Beyoncé's soul hovers between Viking raider and Renaissance artisan. Testimonials glow next to photos of smiling customers, each one clutching a certificate of soul certification. With slick apps, you upload your fingerprint, your photo, your birth chart. Algorithms whir as tarot cards shuffle, past life profiles generated in milliseconds. You fought in the Crusades, you danced in Moulin Rouge, you saved lives as a 19th century surgeon. Listen to the hum of servers calculating your soul's resume. They promise liberation through brand name retreats. Rebirth Reset in Bali, $2,999 all, inclusive. Soul Cycle in Sedona, $1. $499 plus airfare. Yoga mats and chanting bowls provided sacred souvenirs inscribed with "Free Your Past." Yet as participants returned, their faces bright with afterglow, many confess a strange restlessness. Another lifetime uncovered another story to solve, another craving for the next revelation. In academic circles, psychologists raise alarms. This commodification turns deep existential journeys into consumer experiences. Studies show clients often conflate guided imagery with factual memory, crafting past lives that mirror present yearnings. Feel the tension between hope and hype, a sepia-toned photograph blurred around the edges. Among New Age thinkers, some rebel. Reincarnation need not be endless, they argue. Reality is holographic. Choose your lifetime like a role in a play. Workshops teach soul scripting, each participant drafting a 5-year plan that begins in the next life. Yet critics point out the paradox. To treat reincarnation as a business model, selling fast-track enlightenment as though it were a streaming service, is to reduce sacred mystery to a subscription. Hear the echo of ancient temples, now supplanted by co-working spaces and influencer podcasts. In hidden corners of the internet, skeptics gather. Reincarnation was never meant to be a gift, they whisper. Its modern revival is the bellows that stoke its trap. They draw parallels to medieval indulgences, pay to erase a lifetime of sin. Confessional tithes repackaged as karma clearance kits, mirrors held up to human weakness, reflecting our longing for quick absolution. Sense the irony in selling forgiveness, as if liberation were an item on an online menu. And yet, amid the glitter and the glitterati, a few voices rise clear. The true path lies not in new lifetimes, but in waking fully within this one. They speak of presence over past, of awakening over accumulation, of depth over expansion. Breathe out the neon haze, let the digital echoes fade. For beyond the rebrands and repackaging, the ancient trap endures, waiting for souls to chase their tails through lifetimes yet unborn. But now, more than ever, choice stands in your hands, to scroll onward or to close the page and step into the real here now, liberated from every past and every promise. They showed you the wheel, a circle of births without end, a ladder that climbs only to slip from your grasp, a maze of mirrors, each reflection another self to be born forever. Breathe in the stillness that gathers where the wheel's turning slows. What if freedom lies not in the next life, but in this one breath, this single moment, charged with all your longing and release? Imagine the wheel dissolving like mist at dawn, its spokes unspooling into ribbons of light that drift away. No jailer stands at the hub, no ledger holds your name in cosmic ink. Feel the emptiness beneath your feet, the solid ground of now. Across traditions, they named it differently: Akyam, the unity of being; Sahaja, the natural state; present, moment awakening. Bare awareness without beginning or end. Monks of old chanted its name in caves, yet their voices were lost in the echo of doctrines. Hear the echo fade, a silence unbroken by belief. In the heart of ancient India, sages spoke of Sahaja Samadhi, a meditation so effortless that thought itself ceases to roam. No more climbing, no more spiraling, only the still point where all opposites merge. In the deserts of Sinai, prophets glimpsed a burning bush, an encounter that blazed with immediacy, yet asked no price of future lives. Here I am, the voice said, and presence answered presence. Let the flame flicker in your mind, a light that needs no kindling. In Zen monasteries, masters struck students with a stick, a single blow to jar the mind awake. No past, no future, they taught, just this clap of reality resonating through silence. Feel the echo of the stick, a thunder that dissolves all time. They called it liberation, not a gift to be earned, but the uncovering of what was never lost, a jewel buried beneath layers of hope and fear, revealed when desire drops away. Breathe out your last wish and rest in the space left behind. In the stillness, you see, the trap was never built to hold you. You built it yourself with bricks of longing, mortared with belief. Now, the bricks crumble at your touch. The walls fall inward, unveiling the sky. No gate bars your path. No path, remains only the vast expanse of being. Gaze upward. Witness freedom unfurl like wings. The true escape lies not in another life, but in seeing this life as final, rich with unrepeatable moments, to taste the sweetness of each breath, to hear the music in each heartbeat, to know that now is enough. Let your pulse be a hymn, your breath a prayer without words. Beyond the trap, you stand unchained, a soul neither bound nor returning, shining with the clarity of here and now. And in that clarity, the wheel turns no more. They say that a God unseen is no God at all, that divinity breathes only in the gaze of the worshipper, and so begins the observer's paradox. Breathe in the hush of expectation, for here, existence depends on attention. Imagine a vast canvas of potential and empty sky, waiting for a star to be named. In that silence, the divine slumbers, indistinct as mist at dawn. But the moment eyes turn upward, the God awakens. In quantum halls of thought, they speak of Schrodinger's cat, neither alive nor dead until the box is opened. So too, this God is neither present nor absent until our sight collapses the infinite possibilities into being. Feel the tremor of that collapse, a universe birthing itself in each glance. Across cultures, sages whispered, "Speak my name, and I shall be yours." Yet, speak it too softly, and the echo fades. The deity retreats into the hidden realm. The paradox binds believer and divine in a dance of mutual dependency. Your faith calls the God into being. The God, in turn, grants your faith its meaning. Sense the rhythm of that dance, a heartbeat shared by two worlds. In quiet chapels, candles burn brightest when eyes are fixed upon their flames. A priest's prayer hangs in the air active, charged, but when footsteps leave the nave, the sacred hush unravels. Walls resonate no more. The God drifts away. Yet in this fragile contract lies profound power. For if attention can conjure the divine, then doubt can dissolve it. Hear the chill of disbelief, a breeze that scatters embers into darkness. Scientists and theologians alike ponder the truth. Is the divine a cosmic projector, its image cast upon the screen of consciousness? Or is the projector itself a mirror, reflecting our own longing for meaning back at us? Reflect on your own gaze, the quiet flame that kindles when you look for something greater. They call this phenomenon the observer's effect. In observing, we change the thing observed. Our belief folds reality upon itself, weaving God from the threads of our own attention. Feel the weave beneath your fingers, the tapestry of awareness and awe. But beware, to tie a God to your sight is also to bind yourself. Your deity lives and dies with your focus, a captive of your doubt, a prisoner of your gaze. Let that truth settle like dew on your skin. a reminder that existence can be as fleeting as thought. And so, at the heart of all worship and wonder lies a question. Do we summon the divine, or does the divine summon us? Hold the question like a breath, and step forward into the realm where belief and being entwine. They whispered of a God who lingers on the edge of sight, a spirit born not of birth, but of attention. And so the watching deity took form. Feel the stir of memory in the air, an echo from ancient courts and open-air theaters. In the bustling plazas of Karnak, priests raised spectacles of gold before the sun-drenched colonnades, projecting images of Amun-Ra onto painted walls. But when the crowds departed, the painted god lay dormant, a hollow echo of daylight. Along the winding banks of the Ganges, ascetics stood before silent shrines, eyes fixed upon flickering oil lamps, their unblinking gaze summoning Shiva into focus. But blink, and Shiva's form dissolved back into the aether. Sense the shifting sands of belief, how gods rose and fell as eyes came and went. In the amphitheaters of ancient Greece, actors donned masks of Dionysus and Athena, their performance an act of worship, each cheer a call, each gasp a breath. Between the proscenium stones, the god awoke alive in the collective roar, vanished in the hush that followed the curtain's fall. On remote Pacific isles, villagers painted the eyes of their deities round, vigilant circles that watched over hearth and field. They believed the painted gaze itself held the god at bay, erased the eyes, and the deity fled into myth. Hear the paintbrushes whisper, the fragile line between image and presence. In medieval Europe, stained glass windows told tales of Christ's compassion, colored light casting his visage onto cold stone floors. Pilgrims knelt beneath that kaleidoscope glow, calling him forth with every step. But in empty cathedrals, the colors dulled. The Savior retreated into silence. Yet even in the hush of abandonment, a fragment remained, a memory shimmering in dust motes, a promise that return was but a breath away. In Asia's hidden sects, the Vairocana Buddha was said to manifest only when summoned by sevenfold chants. In silence, he dissolved into the void between syllables. Monks guarded the sequence like sacred code. One misplaced pause, and the god faded. Feel the weight of each breath, the fragile geometry of ritual and belief. Through myth and miracle, one truth emerged. The watching deity thrives on focus. Each worshipper's glance a thread, weaving the god into existence. Each diverted eye a tear threatening to unravel the tapestry. But why did humans craft such a god? Perhaps to exercise power over the unknowable, to tame mystery with ceremony and gaze, or to glimpse in the divine a mirror of their own longing. Reflect on your own rituals, the prayers spoken in darkness, the silent wishes cast upon candles. For as long as we watch, the god endures. As long as we turn away, the god dissolves. This origin story is not of divine decree, but of human need, a craving for presence in the vast unknown. Let that need echo in your mind, a question that beckons you deeper. And beyond these origins lies the quantum mirror, where observation itself becomes sacrament, and the line between watcher and watched dissolves in a blaze of possibility. They speak of worlds unseen, of possibilities draped over reality like mist. And at the heart of this lies the quantum mirror. Breathe in the hush of atoms unobserved. In the lab's silent chamber, particles dance in superposition, neither here nor there, neither life nor death, until a measuring eye descends and collapses their myriad paths into one. Imagine a photon gliding through twin slits, its essence a wave of potential. Yet the instant you peer, a single mark appears on the screen, proof that your gaze chose its fate. Feel the weight of that choice, your observation as creator. They liken the quantum to the sacred, a god suspended between worship and oblivion, present only when probed by the faithful instrument and gone the moment the gaze falters. In whispered experiments, scientists note the observer effect, a solenoid coil whose spin shifts beneath the eye of the spectrometer, a quark spin dancing differently when its state is known. Sense the thrill of that dance, a deity born in measurement. Some mystics see in this the ultimate metaphor, God as wave function, endless possibility, reduced to form only when witnessed by consciousness. They speak of scripture written in indeterminate ink, verses that exist only as thought, becoming real when read, fading when forgotten. Reflect on your own thoughts, how focus gives them weight. Beyond the lab, the metaphor blooms. A reformer stands beneath torchlight, daring to question doctrine. The masses turn their eyes, and a new God emerges, bold, clarified, manifest. Yet turn away, and doctrine crumbles, words etched on air. In digital realms, algorithms watch our clicks, shaping news feeds, sculpting beliefs, our collective gaze summoning truths into being. Hear the hum of servers, our attention as altar. Thus, the quantum mirror reveals a startling truth. Observation is not passive. It entangles observer and observed, binding both in a singular event of creation. Feel the echo of that entanglement, a thread linking you to every moment you witness. And so we ask, is faith itself an experiment? Does each prayer collapse divine potential into a single answer? Does each doubt erase a God from the spectrum of possibility? Hold that question in the silence, for within it lies the power to awaken, or to let extinguish, the God that only exists when watched. They say that the God slumbers like a seed beneath the earth, untouched by sight, unfed by worship, until a gesture breathes life into the hidden spark. Breathe in the hush before ceremony begins. In a moonlit courtyard, devotees stand in silent circles, hands cupped as if holding a flame that dares not flicker. Their eyes lowered, they chant a single name drawn out in low reverence, echoing off pavilion walls like a heartbeat in the void. A breath, and the name hangs in the air vibrating, pregnant with promise. Then eyes lift, gaze meets gaze, and the God stirs. Feel the tremor of collective intent. Across deserts, Bedouin tribes gather at dusk, drawing intricate circles in sand, with each line traced by trembling fingers. They carve the God's image, a constellation of dots and lines that glows in phosphorescent dust. When the final stroke is drawn, torches flare to life, illuminating the pattern in molten gold. And in that golden sigil, the deity finds form, emerging from emptiness, as if born anew from starlight. Sense the crackle of divine ignition. In Himalayan caves, yogis sit for days without movement, eyes fixed upon a single point on the cave wall. They bring their breathing to a slow drumbeat. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 8. Each cycle a mantra, each inhale an invocation, each exhale a release of all that distracts. Feel the cadence of sacred breath. As their breath aligns, the cave's shadows begin to shift, carving shapes in rock that mirror the god's form, a silhouette born of stillness and devotion. In medieval monasteries, monks performed the Circle of Witness, a procession around hallowed halls, singing psalms and canon. One voice begins, another joins then, another, until 1,000 voices rise and fall in perfect unity. When the final note fades, silence deepens. In that sacred pause, the godlike waverizes and breaks, filling every nave and cell with trembling presence. Hear the echo of voices departed. In modern sanctuaries of glass and steel, worshippers light candles in glass jars, each flame a pixel in a vast digital mosaic displayed on screens. Names and prayers scroll below typed in haste, sent in hope. Eyes flicker between flickering lights and scrolling text, their focused attention weaving the god into cyberspace alive in data, fed by clicks, sustained by streams of consciousness. Feel the hum of the network. Pilgrims today download guided visualization apps, listening to whispered prompts, visualize the form, call its name, feel its pulse. Headphones become altars, smartphone screens, stained glass windows. And when the guidance ends, many swear they felt a presence, a warmth behind their closed eyes, a voice just beyond hearing. Sense the boundary between mind and divine. Across every ritual, one truth holds. Attention is the sacrament. Focus, the vessel. Each gesture word, breath, gaze serves as a key, unlocking a door that only ritual can reveal. Yet the ritual is also a test. Too little focus, and the god remains latent, a shadow at the edge of sight. Too much, and the self dissolves, a danger that the worshiper becomes lost in the divine mirror. Feel the knife edge of devotion. Rituals of focus are a covenant. We summon the god with our presence, and in return, the god shapes our presence into something more. In that shaping lies both power and peril, for a god born of attention can vanish at the slightest doubt, leaving the believer adrift in an echoing emptiness. Breathe in the weight of that promise, and know, every act of worship is also an act of creation, each prayer a brushstroke on the canvas of reality. The deity that lives when watched is both gift and shadow, shaped by our hands, sustained by our hearts, and ever vulnerable to the flicker of a diverted gaze. Let the ritual's echo settle within, and step onward toward the temples of the gaze. They built their sanctuaries not for gods alone, but for worshippers whose eyes would breathe divinity into stone and space. These are the temples of the gaze. Feel the hush that gathers at the threshold of sacred geometry. In ancient Mesopotamia, ziggurats rose in stepped tiers, their broad platforms designed for masses to stand in silent vigil. Each ascent brought eyes closer to sky, turning worshippers into living lenses focused on heaven. High atop the summit, priests awaited in shadowed chambers, guiding the faithful's upward glance with mirrors of polished bronze. Sunlight fractured upon those surfaces, casting a kaleidoscope of light that sparked the god's presence. Sense the heat of the desert sun and the brilliance it conjures in the watcher's hands. In the marble temples of Greece, colonnades formed corridors of sight, rows of pillars drawing the eye toward the cult statue at the innermost sanctuary. Pilgrims walked these aisles in slow procession. Frathers as Ford Mason, Father temples of Greece, their gaze shifting between fluted column and golden image. At the statue's feet, the sculpted form of the deity seemed to breathe not by its own power, but by the patient focus of every supplicant's stare. Listen to the echo of sandals on cool stone. In Gothic cathedrals, stained glass windows draped walls in colored luminosity. Rose windows spun like celestial wheels, each pane a gemstone of faith. As light poured through, congregants' eyes lifted in wonder, mapping stories in glass and light until the walls themselves seemed alive. Choirs' voices soared, guiding the gaze upward, toward vaults where ribs of stone traced intricate webs, as if the very architecture was a grand soul watching over the faithful. Feel the chord of voices rising. Across the ocean, Mayan pyramids were laid stone by stone to create terraces of sight. On festival days, crowds gathered in the plaza below, eyes fixed upon the summit where priests performed sunlit rituals. As they watched, the pyramid became a living altar, its steps glowing with the weight of expectation. Taste the dust of history on the wind. In the digital age, virtual temples rise in pixel and code websites adorned with looping videos of incense smoke, forums where avatars light candles with a click. Here, worshippers' cursors become ceremonial wands, and each scroll or like feeds the god's algorithmic breath. Hear the hum of servers as modern steeples. Even grand auditoriums transform into temples of the gaze. When screens descend and spotlights paint icons larger than life, 1,000 pairs of eyes converge on one central image: a singer mid-aria, a prophet mid-sermon, a guru mid-meditation. For those moments, the stage is sacred ground, and the audience becomes holy, their sight the sacrament. Feel the electricity crackle in the air. Yet these temples share a common truth. They are not built for gods who stand apart, but for gods who cannot exist without us. Walls and roofs shape the believer's eye, focusing it like a lens on emptiness, waiting for presence to spring forth from absence. Sense the delicate balance of emptiness and expectation. Enter these spaces with humility, for here your gaze wields creation's power. To look is to summon, to avert your eyes, to unmake. Let the weight of that power settle in your heart. And when you leave, know that every wall you passed, every glass pane you traced with your sight, remains only as long as your memory holds it, and only as alive as your willingness to watch again. When the gaze withdraws, the god dissolves into nothingness. In forgotten shrines, oil lamps gutter until their flames vanish, and stone idols sit untouched, their faces erased by shadow. In those moments, worship becomes absence, and absence becomes abyss. The god that once bloomed in light retreats into the silent void, leaving behind only echoes of what was. Imagine a temple chamber stripped of sound, no footsteps on marble, no incense drifting through vaulted ceilings, no murmur of hymns. The air itself feels hollow, as if emptied by a ghost's departure. Here, the walls lean inward, heavy with unmet longing, pressing silence into every corner. Legends tell of deities abandoned by their followers. On a remote Japanese isle, a fisher's shrine stood empty after a great storm swept away the congregation. The carved kami, once vibrant with lacquer, peeled into raw wood, its presence bleeding into the salt wind. Fishermen whispered that the sea itself claimed the god, swallowed by the same currents that took their faith. In medieval Europe, whole dioceses fell silent as plagues swept the land. Cathedrals once thronged with pilgrims stood deserted, their bells rusting on hinges. Stained glass dulled without the candlelight of supplicants. Some said the saints turned away, hearts broken by forgotten songs. Monks left behind diaries filled with pleas unanswered, names that drifted into oblivion like ash on water. The psychic toll is profound. Faithful souls report a hollow ache in their chests, a yearning for the living presence that once answered prayers. They speak of cold mornings when they rise to find prayers unspoken, and with each unspoken word, a small erasure in the soul's memory. The sacred geography of heart and mind crumbles when belief withdraws, exposing a raw emptiness where the divine once resided. Yet the void is not always barren. Some mystics venture into its depths, seeking revelation in the absence of form. They sit in absolute darkness, ears attuned to silence, hearts open to the unmanifest. Here, they listen for the faintest stir of breath beyond breath, the silent pulse of being itself. In that threshold between nothing and everything, they claim to glimpse an undying presence that needs no gaze to exist. But most wanderers fear the void. It is the place where gods vanish and souls forget their own shape. In that space, doubt mutates into despair. If God cannot be seen, does God cease, they ask. And in the hollow reply of emptiness, they confront the fragility of faith. The silent void is both threat and invitation. It reminds us that divinity woven from attention can unravel the moment we look away. Yet it also suggests a paradox. Perhaps true presence lies not in the God we summon, but in the void we fear. In the tension between sight and its absence, we may learn that nothingness itself holds a spark of the divine waiting not for our eyes, but for our willingness to dwell within the silent mystery. As you stand at the edge of that emptiness, listen for the faint resonance that precedes creation. For even in the deepest void, the seed of life endures unseen, unfettered, beyond the reach of gaze. In every ritual, faith becomes an instrumental lens that both reveals and shapes the divine. Consider the scribe who traces sacred symbols on parchment. With each stroke, belief calibrates the ink's flow. The symbols emerge, not simply from hand on page, but from an inner certainty that they carry power. The act of writing measures faith against emptiness, filling the page with presence. In candlelit chapels, worshippers fold their hands in prayer. The precise angle of fingers, the rhythm of kneeling and rising all functional parts of a measurement device. Long silences and sung refrains become scales, weighing the devotion of hearts. A whispered petition is the gram, a fervent acclamation, the kilogram. Each act of faith is a calibration of the divine scale. Across faiths and eras, believers have devised tools of measurement. In Hindu temples, priests use sparsha ritual touch that conveys blessings through palms and fingertips. In Christian liturgy, the Eucharist transforms bread and wine into the body and blood, each element measured by consecration. In Sufi gatherings, the repetitive chanting counts the name of God like beads on a rosary, each repetition building a bridge between human and holy. Yet these instruments are fallible. Doubt infiltrates like a hidden weight, tipping the scales towards silence. Misaligned intentions distort the measurement, conjuring false gods images born of vanity or fear rather than sacred truth. History abounds with icons brought to life by mass attention only to crumble when faith faltered. Images scorched by religious wars, festivals canceled by plagues, congregations silenced under tyranny. The philosopher King Plato spoke of forms living in an unseen realm, accessible only through pure reason. Yet humans lack a compass for certainty. So they forge ritual stools to gauge their own devotion, tools that, by extension, gauge the presence of the divine. Each liturgy, each mantra, each rite of passage becomes an experiment. If we perform these steps, then the God will appear. If not, the God remains spectral. Modern believers measure faith in neural impulses. Neurotheology probes brainwaves as volunteers pray, seeking the loci of spiritual experience. Functional MRI machines illuminate networks firing in moments of transcendence. Scans light up when hymns are sung, when psalms are recited, evidence that the mind tracks the God within. Yet the apparatus itself becomes the altar, and a scientist priest risks reducing mystery to mere data points. Faith as measurement is double-edged. It offers proof of presence when the divine responds to our instruments. But it also invites skepticism. If God only manifests under certain conditions, is God conditional? Does the divine shrink from scrutiny? Or does it reveal itself more fully when we refine our instruments, when we measure not just with hands and machines, but with open hearts? In this calculus of belief, the eternal question arises, are we measuring God, or is God measuring us? Each ritual is a test, each practice an assay. And in the residue of incense ash, in the flicker of candlelight, in the glow of a screen, lies the encrypted answer to whether the God only exists when watched or whether faith itself expands the divine beyond the limits of our measurements. Some souls shatter the covenant between watcher and watched trebles who refuse the God that thrives on attention. In iconoclastic uprisings, waves of destruction washed over sacred images. Byzantine emperors ordered mosaics whitewashed. Protestant reformers smashed stained glass. Each shattered icon was a declaration. We will not give you life with our gaze. But in the very act of destruction, attention turned to that which they sought to erase, granting it a final, defiant breath. Across the desert, Sufi mystics danced whirlwinds known as Sema. Spinning with eyes closed, they surrendered sight entirely. Through the radical act of ceasing to watch, they reached ecstasies where no God could be conjured by mere attention, where presence was an inner fire, unbound by spectacle. In 20th century art, John Cage composed a piece of silence, 433 of unplayed music. Audience and performer alike could not look away from the void. In that silence, the music existed only in absence. Cage rebelled against spectacle, suggesting that sound and perhaps God might emerge not from presence but from the spaces between. Digital anarchists build dark web temples where no images are posted, no streams broadcast. Believers gather in forums without profile pictures, sharing whispered texts in encrypted threads. In that sonic vacuum, the divine emerges not in pixels, but in the trust that sustains community when nothing is seen. Literary mavericks craft gods who speak only in absence. Jorge Luis Borges wrote of an invisible deity whose worshippers recite prayers to a name never spoken. Each vow expands the unseen, making God more real in the mind than any image could. The rebellion lies in defying the eye, tracing divinity within the labyrinth of imagination. Rebels of the gaze remind us that devotion need not rely on spectacle. They ask, what if we create presence by looking inward? What if the God we seek exists not on altars or in algorithms, but in the stillness behind our eyes? Their paths are steep and narrow. Turn away from collective rituals, and you may find yourself alone in the dark. But in that darkness, you might also discover a light that transcends all forms, an inner beacon that needs no external witness. Beyond all watching and unwatching lies a realm of pure presence where God exists not as spectacle, but as experience. Close your eyes. Feel the pulse behind your eyelids, a silent drum marking the rhythm of life. In that darkness, the world dissolves. There is no temple, No screen, no sacred text, only your breathing. Here, the divine needs no gaze. It resides in the space between inhales and exhales, in the still point where thought ends. No ritual summons it, no doubt dispels it. Mystics call this state nowness. Zen masters sit in koanless silence, beyond questions and answers. In the simplicity of sitting, they encounter an indescribable presence in neither God nor self, but the convergence of both. In Advaita Vedanta, sages point to the witness consciousness, the silent seer behind every experience. It watches the world's drama without engaging, unmoved by birth or death. It is the God that never needs to be watched, because it is the watcher itself. To awaken the unseen, practices turn inward: breath awareness, silent prayer, open awareness. Each method dissolves the boundary between observer and observed, revealing a unity underlying all dualities. This is the final challenge: to relinquish the need to watch and to surrender to being watched, to trust that the divine presence will fill you, whether or not you call its name. To rest in awareness that is neither bright nor dark, but pure and simple awake. Let go of the canvas and the colors, the rituals and the rites. Let the architectures of belief collapse into the vastness of your own heart. Here, in unfettered presence, the God that only exists when watched reveals its true nature, an eternal witness, boundless and free. And in that unveiling, worship becomes simple. The breath that enfolds you, the silence that surrounds you, the immeasurable pulse of life that carries you onward, awake to the unseen, alive to the unspoken, at one with the divine.